we just did it because like no one wanted to help him. No one cared, and he had neuropathy and his eyesight was going, and he was 300 pounds and now he's like 100. He bounces between 195 to 202.
Shari, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, I found Carnivore through a series of events where we had started down the road of supplementation and kind of trying to find a whole food diet, but that included like whole food grains and like all of that. So I was making our own bread and pasta and all that stuff. And then learned about paleo and the damage that grains and gluten can do to our gut. And my husband came home from work one day and there I was like cooking peppers and onions and he's like, who are you and what have you done with my wife? Because I never like cut up peppers and definitely wouldn't cook onions. And I said, hey, we're going to try this paleo thing. And so we did that for about a year and a half. And it worked really well, like helping him with his asthma and stuff like that. But it didn't really help with his blood sugars. He's a type 1 diabetic. And so there was some health benefits with it. But then we took on 2 foster kids. We fostered my niece and nephew. And so that just made life way too chaotic to try and keep up with that. And you get in Wisconsin, where I am, you get government subsidies when you have foster children. So there's certain foods that you are required to get and everything. So we kind of fell off that. And when they left our home, we just kept doing what we were doing and we kept getting fatter and sicker. And then I found Dr. Fung and started learning about fasting. And because I was actually really anti-keto for quite a while because I had listened to the wrong people and hadn't really done like my own research and my own due diligence. And so when I started reading Dr. Fung, the science made so much sense, and I was hesitant to try because I had really bad reactive hypoglycemia. So I would drop like down into the 40s and like I couldn't function. So I had no clue how this was going to work, but I was able to like start cutting out the snacks. And as I started cutting out snacking, because I was eating 6 times a day. And as I started cutting out those snacks, then I was able to just increase with more protein and fat. And then eventually I was fasting for 32 to 42 hours and not having any hypoglycemic, events. And so that was huge. And so we went just low carb and then kind of transitioned into keto. And I became a certified ketogenic consultant and do continuing education and everything. And 2020 was a really hard year, as it was for everyone. And we kind of fell off the wagon, but not completely. So, it wasn't super bad, but we did gain back some things. And so we got back on the keto whole food, and we never did like the keto crappy snacks or anything like that from the store. It was real keto, but I had gotten plantar fasciitis in my feet really, really bad. And I had been watching some of Dr. Barry's videos. And so in October of 2022, I just knew that I had inflammation way too much. I couldn't walk for more than like 5 minutes at a time without being in severe pain. And so I couldn't do stuff with my family. And so I just said to my husband, hey, I'm doing this carnivore thing and I'll keep cooking you just keto food or we can just all do this. And so like the whole family, we all eat carnivore-ish. So we're kind of in between ketovore and carnivore. And we're not like staunch about it. We'll still have, seasonings and some sauces and stuff, but we're just really aware of the ingredients that are in there because I've lived with chronic pain my entire life. I used to walk with a cane. And so like, I don't want to go back to that. And with my husband being a type 1 diabetic, his A1C is currently the best that it's ever been. It's not as good as many type 1 diabetics that are doing this, but he's also got that insulin resistance going on from years of poor nutrition advice from his medical team. So now we're kind of just go there to get our prescriptions for him, and then we do our own thing. So we've been carnivore-ish for about a year and a half now, and my plantar fasciitis is gone. My pain is still very manageable, probably the least that I've had in a long time. Uh, and I just we keep sharing and sharing, and I just help anyone that I can through coaching and guidance. And our mantra is always progress, not perfection.
It's always fantastic to be able to just change a little bit of the way you're eating, and that clears up pain. There's nothing quite as nice as that.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So, how how has this impacted your day-to-day routine and the way you're eating and that kind of thing?
Well, it's easy. We eat 2 to 3 times a day. The kids will eat, usually breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it's super easy because it's eggs and bacon or eggs and sausage, or they might just do some burger patties, or leftover. Like yesterday for breakfast, we had carnivore chili because it was what was left over, and so it just makes it nice and easy, and it's actually our budget hasn't increased at all going this way because we don't have to shop as often, and we're not throwing away food, and it's not like we've got to cook. None of us were ever big vegetable eaters, to begin with. So we'll buy frozen vegetables because we do like green beans and we do like asparagus, and they don't bother us, they don't inflame us, and so we'll have those maybe once a week. But it makes life so much simpler. Everyone is just more mental clarity. We have like my anxiety and my PTSD is virtually non-existent as long as I stay good. Um, and we just, my kids run track and field, and they do it without carb loading. They do it eating this way. And so I think we just all have better sustained energy. If we get sick, we get better quicker. Um, yeah, it's just everyday life is so much easier now.
So how do the kids go, like, when they're with their friends and stuff? If if they're going out to eat, are they kind of flexible with their friends? And
Yeah, they are. So we homeschool, so that takes off a lot of the pressure. But like when they go to track meets and stuff like that, they'll bring pre-cooked bacon and some stuff. But if they say stop out at Culver's, they'll sometimes they'll get a burger without a bun, and sometimes they might get like chicken nuggets or something like that. Um, they're young and metabolically flexible, so the biggest thing that we try to instill with them is, the poison is in the dose. So as long as it's not like they're not doing this every day, and as long as if they can try to keep it as gluten free as possible, because that gluten takes a long time to get out of the system. If they have french fries, they have french fries. We don't ever want to make them, we want them to be able to stand up and explain why we eat the way that we eat, but we don't want them to ever like be upset that we eat this way because they feel weird or ostracized from. So we don't want to make it a big deal. We just like, hey, you eat like this. No, as long as you don't make a big deal out of it, no one else is going to make a big deal out of it. I think we get in our heads too much, and then we're like, oh, they're gonna think I'm weird, and honestly, no one cares. They're just like, but yeah, they'll get ice cream or whatever if they're going out, and that's fine. And they know if they overdo it, they feel it and they pay the consequence, and they're they're making that choice. Now our 11-year-old, she has a gluten intolerance, so she always has to be mindful of that. And it's like, well, people don't not like her because she's has to be, well, I can't have gluten. So it's no different. You have a sugar intolerance because you want to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's a good way of framing it. Yeah. Um, so how has the day-to-day changed for your husband, now that he's kind of using diet, he's got his type 1 under more control?
Yeah. Um, it's good. We are still working on figuring out like his insulin dosages because for type 1, you don't make any insulin at all. So he has to take his background insulin and he takes that twice a day. And depending on the stress load at work, all of that can play a factor in where his blood sugars run. So he has to keep an eye on, is the stress going high, and then he might have to take a correction dose of fast acting. He has to dose for protein, so I went from like having to measure out carbs and stuff like that when I would pack his lunch. Now I weigh protein so that he knows what to dose. But it's a lot less insulin, and it's just a lot easier. I always make sure he's got pre-cooked bacon. I know that it's not the like best, as opposed to my cooking the bacon at home and him taking it. But the pre-cooked bacon he can leave in his backpack. And so it's quick there. He doesn't have to worry about it spoiling. So if it's a day he's on the run and he can't sit down to the steak that maybe I sent him, or like I sent him with meatballs this morning, if he can't sit down to heat that up and eat it, he can rip open that package of bacon and he can eat that on the go, and he doesn't have to worry about it being spoiled or rancid, and he can just dose the insulin for that. So it's he's lost probably, I think, 25 pounds now, and he eats once or maybe twice a day versus like having to eat all the time like a lot of diabetics do, which helps so that he doesn't have to take as much insulin and keeps his A1C down. And, all of this is just going to mean that he gets to be with us longer. When we first got married, he thought he would be dead by the time he was 40. And now, he's looking at, hey, what are we going to do after retirement? Because when we first got married, I think the highest A1C that he had was close to 13. So it was like really, really high. Um, and he has diabetic retinopathy. He's had to have laser surgery to cauterize, so he doesn't have good night vision anymore. Um, and he had to have like basically ibuprofen like jammed in the back of his retina to take the swelling down. And so he would get huge blood floaters going across his eyes. So we weren't sure if he was going to go blind. And this was back before we knew any of the dietary stuff. So we had found really good supplements that basically healed that up. And now he can actually take less of that because we have the inflammation under control. And now his A1C is down to 7.1. So, could it be better? Yeah. But again, progress, not perfection. And he's essentially a type 1 and a type 2 right now for diabetes. And we just, you just type 1 diabetes is not easy. So his doctors are thrilled that he's even at the 7.1, and we'll hopefully get it down, lower. But yeah, now we're looking at, okay, what are we going to do when the kids are grown and gone? Are we going to travel? Are we going to, and we didn't have that hope before because he was preparing me to be a young widow. He'd always push me to do something, be a single parent, because he thought for sure he was going to die in his 40s, and he's 46 now and going strong. So yeah.
That's great. And it's just it's kind of a little bit frustrating, I think, sometimes when you hear how just eating the right stuff can improve the way your life is, just eating the right food improves your life. The whole time you've been going to doctors and they've just been saying, take this, take this, take this, take this. And it just
Yep.
just
Yeah.
seems so frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. I hate to be cynical, but they have no vested interest in us getting healthy. The medical profession doesn't. They just take a pill, take a pill. When you have a type 1 diabetic, it's feed them what they want and cover it with insulin. This is going to be progressive and it's just going to get worse and you're just going to have to live with it. When you have a type 2 diabetic, they don't tell you to change your diet. They just throw pills at it. And then when that doesn't work and you gain weight and you get more insulin resistant, then they give you insulin. And that's what happened with my dad. He was a 20, 24 years type 2 diabetic. Well, we got him off of his insulin last year. They had him on humongous amounts of insulin. He lost 100 pounds. And then he met with his dietitian last month. And she told him all the weight that he lost was from dehydration and that he needed to go back on all of his medications and his insulin. And she was just appalled that his endocrinologist was on board with what we were doing. Now, we did not ask his endocrinologist. We just did it because no one wanted to help him. No one cared. And he had neuropathy and his eyesight was going. And he was 300 pounds and now he's like 100. He bounces between 195 to 202. So no one wanted to help him. And yeah, his A1C is still higher than it needs to be because we're just working with fasting and whole foods. So yeah, he has a little bit more carbs than what he should, but it's not high enough, or it doesn't stay super high to where he needs that extra insulin right now. And every day it just gets better. And, we just work a little bit more, but he feels so good being off of all of that crap. But we had to do it on our own, and then it was the doctors going, "What'd you do? You look fantastic." Well, yeah, it wasn't because of the medication. And they're like, "Oh, do you need a new script on your insulin?" He's like, "No, I stopped taking that." You what? And then she saw his blood sugars and she's like, "Oh, I guess I can remove that from your chart then because you clearly don't need it." And I'm not a
That's
doctor.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he keeps telling me I should be a doctor, but
Well, I mean, what did you say, 24 years?
24
Your
years. Yep,
father's gone through this for 24 years.
yep,
No doctor has just said to him, "Change your diet."
that's
And
right.
it's up to his daughter, who is not a doctor, to say, "Just change your diet and things will start to get better."
That's right.
Wow.
His, he had been with a primary care physician, and when he couldn't get his sugars under control, then they sent him to this endocrinologist. So when he reached out to me in September of 2022, because I had tried introducing him to keto in 2019 and he just wasn't ready. And you can't lead you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so I'm a big proponent of just share what you're doing. You're not shoving it down someone's throat, but I live away from a big city. So a lot of my life is in social media. So I'll post, "Hey, I just did this fast," or "This is my dinner." And that's all I say. And so he had seen the fasting. And so he started doing it. He didn't comment on any of my posts. So I had no idea until the phone rang one day and he's like, "Hey, I need to get beyond an 18-hour fast. I need you to help me." And so I really thought we were going to have pushback from his endocrinologist because she was not nice when she was caring for him. And I'm just like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." Because I'm trained and I know what I'm doing, I wanted to make sure he hadn't slipped into a late onset type 1. So I was like, "Okay, you need to get these labs run. You need a C peptide. You need, this." And once I knew his pancreas was still functioning, then I knew what route we could take without having to get permission from his doctor. And so, we did it. And within 8 months later, he had his follow up with her. And it was on a Zoom type follow up. And she just couldn't believe the difference. She didn't even think she was talking to the same patient. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm off all my medications." And he calls me his non-doctor doctor. My nickname is actually Dr. Sherry, and it has been for many, many years. And so he told her about how I have him take salt throughout the day because it helps keep his energy up, it helps with headaches. And when he told her, basically just regurgitated what I had said. She's like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." So guess what she carries with her now? She carries salt with her because she would get headaches throughout the day. And she's like, that makes so much sense. I'm going to try that. And boom, it helped. And so, both his primary and his endo, they're just like, yeah, you just do what your non-doctor tells you to do. And so that's what we do. So now they're on board. But if we would have asked them for their permission, they never would have been on board. We had to take the
Mm.
bull by the horns and just do it.
So just playing devil's advocate for a second, skeptical people watching this might think, okay, well, this is all just bro science. There's nothing to this. You just got lucky. It's all bro science. I mean, how would you respond to that?
Well, I do get that actually, from some people, especially when they'll see like I eat more carnivore, and they'll just be like, "Well, that can't be healthy that you don't, have vegetables." And it's not that I don't have vegetables, I do. Or like with my dad, and I will either just point to the other people that I've helped because he's not the only one that I've helped, or you can just I always have the studies ready because, Dr. Fung posts the studies. Dr. Barry has the studies. I have 4 bookshelves full of health books because this is what I do. This is where like I'm the most alive when I am studying this. um I've read Jeffrey Gerber, I've read Volek, I've read Barry, I've read Bernstein, I just pretty much any book, you name it, the Chris Palmer, anything on like the brain. So um the proof is in the pudding. And so I can say, okay, you can think it's anecdotal, but when you've got 50 anecdotal stories that are exactly the same, that's where the proof is. And you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe my dad. What is it going to hurt you to give it a run for 30 days and then extend it to 60 days? And I'll be there to answer your questions, to hold your hand. But when I have a friend that reached out to me that I had been praying that she would do a diet change, she's got horrible arthritis, and I've known her for 12 years now. I don't think there has been a day that she hasn't been out of pain. Tried talking to her years ago about maybe at least cutting out gluten, and she was not interested in that. And finally, someone at church that has the same kind of arthritis that she does shared carnivore with her, and she knew about it from watching me. So she finally reached out to me, and so I am helping her. And she's almost 2 months in, and I think she said she was down 20 pounds and over a pant size. But more importantly, she's near zero pain. Now, this is a woman that hasn't been able to be like pain free in I get goosebumps just thinking about it, in over a decade. And yes, she's still on medication, but that's what we're going to start tackling now. But she's like, I'm virtually pain free. And even with her medication, she couldn't get to that. But I had to let her get to the point of making the change in her own time. But it's just changing the food. We haven't even touched her medications yet. You know?
It's amazing. And I think your way of going about this, and kind of not being in people's face about it, is a really good approach. Because just, this is what I'm eating, or if you got questions, ask me. Otherwise, no worries. It's a good approach, because the thing is, people think about it. They might, it's a seed, it's in the back of their mind.
Exactly.
And like, your friend heard someone else talking about it and was like, oh, hang on, well, that's what Shari was talking about as well. Okay, time to give it a try. But other people might be, I'm just at my wit's end.
Right.
I've tried everything, nothing works. The medication's not working. Okay, well, what have I got to lose?
Right. Exactly. And you'd be surprised how many times, um, I'll post something, it doesn't get a like, it doesn't get anything. Like it just sits there. And then out of the blue, I'll have someone message me, "Hey, I started, trying that keto thing, or I'm really serious. Is this an okay thing to have? What about fasting?" And like they'll just start asking these questions, and they're coming to me because they've seen my posts. And I never, yeah, some of my posts come across like maybe staunch for me, but I never want someone to think that my way is the only way. You know, like Dr. Barry says, it's it's the proper human diet. It's not keto or ketovore or carnivore, or carnivore-ish. I never want to be so staunch that I'm like, you just need to eat steak and that's going to fix everything. Because some people do very well with vegetables, you know? And so I want to meet people where they're at and help them achieve their goals. Yeah, we might need to do a 30 or 60-day carnivore elimination diet because depending on what issues they have. I have another friend, her son has a genetic condition that he's now being seen in a clinic in Kansas right now for. And she had paid a lot of money to a holistic nutritionist that had him on all the wrong foods. This child was so full of inflammation, chickpeas, and like just all this inflammatory food. And so, just by my mentioning something on one of her posts, she contacted me, and now I've been walking this walk with her, and she's got her boys, one of who is autistic, wouldn't touch meat. She just messaged me yesterday that he ate beef nuggets, and he used to gag at the thought of meat. This isn't the son that's being seen at the clinic. This is the autistic child. So they basically got their whole family on carnivore, and he's thriving. Like this kid's going to actually graduate treatment earlier than what they thought he would. And so, and now he's going to have this normal life. He gets to go back and play baseball and do all this stuff. And why? Because I met her where she was, helped give her ideas for her kids. It doesn't all just have to be, you just have to eat steak. Some people are, I'll see like when people have lives and you'll have people comment, why would you make replicas of the food that got you sick? Uh, because it might help that person stay on track. It might help them from falling off the wagon. They may need that comfort, or it may be a budget thing. You know, if I can take ground beef and turn it into 100 different meals, that might help that family be able to eat better as a unit. I couldn't afford to just feed my family steak. There's no way. But I can make a meat pizza. I can make a carnivore meatloaf. We can make a breakfast pizza with sausage. We can do a lot of stuff with eggs. I can make a uh, cream cheese sweet roll that we can have when we have guests over. And then you don't feel like weird or, but it's all budget friendly. And so I never want to be one of those staunch, well, I wouldn't eat the stuff that got me sick. Well, if you can tweak it, why can't you enjoy it? That's just, maybe that's just because I've got 8 kids, and so sometimes you got to be creative. Um, but it helps a lot of people to know that they don't just only have to eat steak or they're not doing it right and they're not going to succeed. So I like to meet people where they are.
Yeah. Wow. So you just mentioned something that kind of stopped me in my tracks there. Um, 8 kids, and you mentioned before you're homeschooling.
Yeah,
How do you not look tired?
I'm carnivore. No, I'm just kidding. So sometimes I am tired. Let me tell you, some days I am tired. Um, I've been, so I know I've got some funky stuff going on with my thyroid, and I've been researching iodine. And so getting my iodine right and getting the bromide detoxed, that helps a lot. It also helps that I've graduated 5 of those 8 kids and I only have 3 left that are still schooling. Um, but I mean, we have a busy life. I work for a publishing company, and it's tax season, so I actually work for H&R Block too. And we have 8 chickens and a 14-week-old puppy. Um, so yeah, life is a little bit busy, but I do sometimes take a power nap during the day. Um, Today's a good day though. Today there wasn't much in the way of fatigue, so that was good. But I've also been trying to set up. I realized that I've been under eating, and that's not a good thing. So I wasn't giving my body enough. It wasn't an intentional. I don't believe in like doing calorie deficit or anything like that for weight loss. It just was, hey, I got busy, and so I wasn't paying attention. So I'm actually actively tracking right now what I'm eating and just making sure that I'm hitting my protein goals, and my fat will fall where it does. And I'm going to try that for about a month and just kind of, see if that helps balance my hormones and, you know, other things. So, yeah, I mean, it's all about, for me, it's all about the knowledge and sharing that knowledge. Because not everyone wants to know everything that I want to know. And they just want to be like, can you just tell me what applies to me? And so I can dig in my bag and be like, yeah, this applies to you. And like I'm going to Las Vegas next week for Dave Feldman's science convention. So I'm going to have 2 days of sheer geekiness, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited, but I'll get to meet Ben Bickman and Dr. Barry and Michelle Hearn and like all these great people that I've read and have conversed with online, but I'll actually get to meet them and get selfies and stuff. So everyone's like, "You're going to Vegas? How exciting!" I'm like, "Yes, I get 2 days of listening to nutrition talks," and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this is Sherry. Okay, yeah, that would make sense." But I can't.
I'm I've got to say I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous. Yeah. So everyone's doing better now. Your husband's doing better, you're doing better. Your kids are eating this way too.
Yep.
Um, what does the future hold now for you?
Well, the future for us is just so my 3 boys, they're out of the house. Um, One boy eats this way, the other two, we really screwed up when they were little, but we didn't know about this. They hated vegetables. Like they would sit with it in their mouth, and they hated vegetables. But you listen to the experts and you listen to the doctors, and they're like, "Oh, no, they have to eat this. There is no, you're the parent. They have to eat this." And so we really kind of ruined food for them, and I horribly regret that because my youngest son, um he's just a junk food junkie. And then my second son, he's the carnivore, and he can really tell if he, starts eating bad because he'll get brain fog and stuff like that. And then my oldest son, which is my second child, he kind of just eats whatever, but it's mostly junk. Um, so for them, I don't really have any control over them. My oldest is 25, and she has Asperger's, as do I, and my second son. And she has severe anxiety and can get depressed. And we found this out when she was in college. It was really, really rough. And she went into a really dark spot. And we feared for her life. Actually, she was cutting it into a lot of stuff, and that was right around where we were entering the keto space. So when she was home, she just had to eat keto because that's what we had. And she noticed that everything in her mind started lifting. She was doing so much better. And then when she went back to school and was back on their food, she started going downhill. So our doctor helped us fight the school, get her off the food plan. And so she stays very diligent about having to eat mostly animal based, um, at the bare minimum, no gluten, if she is out and does get some stuff. And we can tell, and she can tell if she goes off plan because she'll really start to get moody and she'll start getting anxious over little things, a lot quicker. But honestly, if we hadn't been eating this way in 2020 when everything shut down and her school shut down, and then ultimately her school closed for good and she had to transfer, um, I'm not sure what would have happened with her, but she definitely would not have handled it, and all the crap that she ended up having to deal with at the new school. She wouldn't have handled it as good as she does now, or did then anyway. And so, she's still dating and trying to find out where life is going for her, but that's the one thing that anyone that she's with, she just lets him know, this is how I have to eat, and if you can't accept it, then, you know, that's just the way it is. She's like, I don't care how you eat, but I have to eat this way. So for her, I think that that will be her future. My teens, I just hope that they stay this way, and I think that they will, because we don't shove it down them. We just really try and live that lifestyle. And, if we go on vacation and we don't pick at them, they can't eat that. You can't eat that. That's going to kill you. They know that they're going to pay the price. My 16-year-old, her eczema will start up and it's in a very uncomfortable place. It's not eczema on her face, it's eczema on her rear end. And if she wants to go swimming, it burns. And so, she knows. And so, for us, my husband and I just we want to get our coaching business off the ground and my YouTube channel going so that we can reach more people and help more people, because we kind of feel like um, we owe it to people like Dr. Barry and Dr. Bickman, who have um, tirelessly given information and helped people, and Dr. Bernstein, and they've helped us. And if it wasn't for them stepping out of their comfort zones and doing that, then we wouldn't be where we are. So we're kind of like, well, we owe it to them to help others and pay it forward. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Nice. So Shari, if people want to reach out to you, you mentioned a YouTube channel, and what YouTube channel, what other ways can they get in contact?
Yeah, so I've got my YouTube channel, and it's my YouTube handle does not match the name that comes across, because when I had started it, the supplement company that I work with is called Neolife. And we use that in certain instances when we need to, but it's 65 years old and it has a pharmaceutical license, so I know everything's like standardized. And so my YouTube channel is actually at Neolife Keto Sherry, but then when it comes up, it says the Carnivore Mommy, because I was like, everyone's like, you should start a YouTube channel, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what to name it, so I named it that, and then I was like, well, I want Carnivore or something. So then I changed it, but I already had business cards made, so I didn't want to like change the handle itself. Um, so that's what it is. And then I'm that on Instagram as well. My business page is the underscore carnivore underscore mommy. I do have a blog that I try to keep updated, which is Sherry's Low Carb Kitchen. Um, and then on Facebook, I have a business page, which is just Reif Natural, REIF Natural. And so, yeah, those are the places. And then all of those have my email address, so someone's able to uh, get right to me that way. And, I'm would love to help anyone that, has questions. Um, I focus Well, I've got a really big like focus just because I do a lot of extensive reading and research. Um, but diabetes obviously is really a specialty of mine. Metabolic health, and then like depression, anxiety, just because of the things that we've gone through. I have severe anxiety and PTSD, and with my daughter's anxiety and stuff. But yeah, pretty much like I'm well rounded in my knowledge, but if I don't know, I've got resources that I can like go pick other people's brains or point someone in the right direction. Go check this out from Dr. Bickman, or go check this out from Dr. Fung, or, whatever. So yeah, but that's where I can be found.
Nice. So I'll link to those in the description. Sherry, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me. This was great.